Hey guys, testing. Let's get this mic right real quick. Alright. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of All Bass Creations, effects, tutorials, demos, and review. I am the Bass Negus, of course. Make sure you hit that like button for me while you're hanging out with me, all that good stuff. And feel free to hit the Cash App, Super Chat, all that good stuff. So, this is Ambient Afternoons. If you're new, I just kind of do quite a bit of playing during this time, but I also will be doing some explaining of sounds and different things like that. But let's jump back into it. So, if you haven't already, hit that like button for me. I greatly appreciate y'all hanging out with me on the different platforms: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. What else we got on here? Twitch. Appreciate all y'all. So, yeah, do a bit of explaining for a second. So, what you heard me kind of do there is do some layering of pads. All these sounds, by the way, are available on Patreon for these various pedals. So, you know, the Future Impact, Enzo X, Mercury X, all have preset. And don't forget about all the ToneX ones packs and combination packs that are available on the Patreon. So, if you're hearing some sounds you like those pads, let's go back. Let's go back to a few of these pads we had here. And as you can hear, they're optimized for bass. We can get some really beautiful pads here. And that's all from my bass. And the cool thing about amazing effects pedals like the Enzo X, that same sound I can also play with keyboard. You know. Still got polyphony available here. And the other cool thing I kind of like about the Enzo X, I don't know if this was done intentionally or not, but you know, the sounds do sound slightly different when you play them with your bass or your guitar versus with the keyboard. And I particularly like that. It just interprets them differently. So that's just me doing some MIDI triggering down bottom. I have a MIDI captain down on the floor, as well as the 10-foot switch for the Luminite Graviton M1 down on the floor. And what that pretty much allows me to do is live, I can have my pedal board up here and still be able to switch through patches and still, you know, trigger different CC controls or PC controls. So, you know, even without touching the board at all, I can go back to my clean bass sound. You know, if I want this compressor back on, I can always just turn that on. But typically the compressor never really goes off, that Empress compressor. Or I can, you know, trigger I can also trigger reverb, hold modifiers. Right? So see where we at. Let's switch patches here. And by the way, definitely check out my ToneX packs. You know, I got the new ones. Of course, I redid all the other preamps, or the majority of them, to the V2, upgraded V2 software. But I also created some combination packs with the Color Box V2 and different preamps. So this one is the Color Box and Ambient SGT together. Make sure I'm on the right ones here. There we go. Or I can, hard part about, I should have hooked my color box back up. That's kind of like my on and off switch for it, but for the microphone. But so I'll just kind of leave it on for now. So I also have a TRS expression pedal running down here on the floor that's running to the Graviton M1. And this is actually wirelessly connected to a CME H4 MIDI Pro. And the H4 MIDI Pro pretty much distributes MIDI throughout my pedal board, as well as it goes down here to the iPad as well. So, that didn't show me. Good stuff here. No. But bam. So give me 1 second. I can pull up. Let's do this. You hear a few clicks. Sorry about that. We'll take it here. And shout out to all the Patreon folks. I definitely appreciate all y'all. Even the sustain pedal. And all this is coming out of one stereo line. So basically, the way I have everything rigged up is coming out of the H4 MIDI Pro, which is not hardwired, but it's fixed to the bottom of the board underneath. You know, pretty much coming out of here, goes through all my MIDI pedals here, bam. So Mercury X, Enzo X, Pog 3, Future Impact are all MIDI pedals. Eventually, I'll probably have these two ToneX ones on MIDI as well. So, you know, and with the freedom MIDI gives you, I'm trying to tell you, while you're performing, you know, it's really incredible. You know, it gives me options. I can have all my EPs. I can still use my Enzo X and Pog 3 and the Future Impact, all as, you know, either pretty much as a modular keyboard in combination with my iPad. So not only will I have the bass stuff on deck, right? That's all the iPad there. Got all that there. I can also add in my pads. Strings. And the strings is that string sound is coming from the Enzo X. Cool thing, I can freeze that. Play over it. So whatever you pretty much want to do, you're able to do that straight from this setup, you know what I'm saying, and because of MIDI. So it allows me to pretty much have a very versatile setup, even that same, I'm gonna play a bit of strings with my bass. That, as well as, you know, pads, lead sounds, even organ sounds. And the organ sound is coming from the POG 3. If you didn't know, you can actually play the POG 3 with MIDI and use it as like an organ module. Let's mute these real quick. And I can also still simultaneously play it. That's the crazy thing about the technology now. So, you know, now with the Enzo X, it doesn't allow the separate processing of the MIDI and your actual bass sound at the same time. So I have to choose if I'm going to play it with MIDI or with my bass at any given time, because it's going to prioritize the MIDI first off. So if there's MIDI already being held down, MIDI signals coming from the MIDI controller, it's not going to read or try to, you know, detect the notes that I'm playing on my bass. So, you know, that's something to note between the two units. But yeah, overall, I would say, man, the MIDI is going to be your way to make something that may be, you know, a complex rig. Like this rig does have a lot less pedals than some other bass rigs, but it can do way more than pretty much any bass rig I ever seen. Like this pretty much does everything you would ever need it to do. And it's, you know, a very compact setup. You know, all the unlimited amp models, you know, a million types of bass synth here available to me, from the Future Impact to the bass synth, the POG 3, Enzo X, all have bass synth in them. So, you know, this just gives some examples of some different bass synth sounds. And like I said, you know, I do like the MXR pedal. You know, this is like an octave sound I made with it. Gotta get something easier. And so with this particular, the MXR bass synth, right? I usually use this with an expression pedal. Let me see if I can actually fit one in there real quick, because it's like right up on this joint. Smooth this down just a smidge. Probably can get one to fit in there. Just give me 1 second, because this is a super important feature of this pedal that a lot of people overlook. You gotta have that expression pedal with this joint. It's gonna literally multiply pretty much, what is it, 8? Yeah, 8 presets. It's gonna make it pretty much like way more than that. It's gonna make it like 24 presets. And I'm gonna show you how to pretty much multiply your presets with the expression pedal. Now, I am going to start doing the members only stuff. Like, I'm going to go through all my different sounds that I've made with the bass synth and recreate them. But that's going to be for members only. So if you want to sign up on Patreon or on the YouTube channel, you can get that exclusive. But otherwise, you gotta guess. Second. Got a little bit of music or something in here, huh? But yeah, so I'm gonna take this expression pedal, just a regular old expression pedal, nothing fancy. Sorry guys, it's a little trickier when you gotta hold your bass, your baby, trying not to hit everything in the world over here. All right. Let's rock and roll here. So this is what I'm saying. So instead of thinking the expression pedal as like the filter cutoff trigger, pretty much, you're going to use it to morph between settings. So I'll go back to that previous setting. That's heel down. Toe down is. Just get some wild sounds with that joint. Yeah. Let's see some. You got hidden effects like that in there as well in the MXR bass synth. You know, you're gonna be able to. Yeah. Gotta have some little slide in there. Glissando. so I can go halfway, a little bit up from, so this is heel down. I'm just going up slightly. And it morphs between the settings very well. So this is about halfway. This is all the way toe down. Now, mind you, I'm doing that with my foot, which is kind of like slightly I'm just moving it slightly to morph, to pretty much mix those two settings. So, yeah, you can get some very nice. Get some nice bass sounds out of it. I would really suggest, if you like the MXR bass synth pedal, or if you're thinking about buying it, I really suggest that you buy it to experiment with sounds rather than always trying to chase other bass synth sounds with it. I think you'll get much more enjoyment out of it, and because if you want something that's going to be copying vintage bass synths, I recommend the Future Impact V4 VIP. You know, if you want something that's doing more modern, like experimental bass synth stuff, the Enzo X is perfect for that type of stuff, plus all the other synths you can do. So. Managed to get some lead synths out of it, but yeah, so definitely, you know, not a keyboard replacement, but it definitely sounds good. Now the Future Impact, on the other hand, sounds amazing. And I will say it actually tracks very well, and it actually, that same synth sound there is going to sound the same when I play it with MIDI. So in order to do that, you just go to the global settings by holding on and off here, press program to enter the global settings pretty much. If you want to change the type here, or what you're changing, instrument input is pretty much what that means. Then we have it on bass right now, but we can change this to synth or guitar. You can change it to EW or EU, whatever the thing called. Forgot what that joint is. But yeah, synthesizer will work. So bam, press on. Now of course the tracking on the bass is I don't know why I'm having a hard time. The tracking on the bass is disabled, but now you can play it with MIDI. And this is the Future Impact. All these sounds, again, are already available in the preset packs. You don't even have to spend time programming this stuff. Let's see, let's come over here. So, nice. Even stuff like that. Do that. No, Lord. All right, in there. So bam, you know, you got actual key bass available to you with a future impact. Of course, if I wanted that to be a little heavier. And again, when I go to play that same sound, when I make a sound with the key bass on there, or in key bass mode, whatever the case, synth mode, whatever you want to call it, I can always... But of course the keys is disabled. So plenty of options on there for bass synth stuff. And I really like the future impact, like even with sounds like this. So it tracks very well, and that's right, even with that big jump. So even with the octaves, it does well. And there's supposed to be an update coming out on this Future Impact V4 VIP as well. That's supposed to have improve the tracking even more. So definitely tracks well. Got some incredible all your vintage bass synth sounds in there. But you know, something like the Enzo X. Come over here. Yeah, don't sleep. Don't sleep. So you can get some nice bass synth sounds out of here as well. Let's go to different. Let's go here and let's go to our bass setting for the JHS color box. So, you know, of course I have my JHS color box preamp. It's available on here as well. So if you have a ToneX or ToneX One or the ToneX software, if you don't want to have to buy a color box, check out my preamp packs over on Patreon, as well as if you don't want to have to sit around and program all these different bass synths and sounds and stuff like this, or optimize them, you know, the presets for bass, you can grab my preset packs from patreon.com/allbasscreations. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you hit that like button while you're here. You're hanging out. You might as well join the funk. Yeah, they track. Like all of these pedals track. I don't know why people think like pretty much every bass synth pedal I've tried, you know, even the C4 synth, you know, I have a C4 synth as well. The tracking is okay on there. That's probably actually the worst tracking out of all of them, but even that's usable and good. Good enough to do a lot of different things with. So don't think that it's not. But out of these pedals, all of them track amazing. Like I couldn't ask for better tracking on any of these pedals in particular. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, over time things will progress, but what they've got the tracking to so far is very good. You know, and Miles, these particular company's tracking is miles above some of the other ones. Like, so definitely you're not going to go wrong with the Future Impact, the MXR Bass Synth, or the Enzo X in terms of synth pedals. Now, if you want polyphony, polyphonic abilities, you want to go with the Enzo X. You want the vintage bass synth and key bass, as well as I can use this Future Impact to use my bass to trigger other synths as well. So I don't just have to use the internal sounds. I can, say, run a MIDI out to Logic or Logic Pro or whatever software, run MIDI into the computer, and I can play the sounds in there. If I want to run this MIDI out to a keyboard, I can use the bass synths on that keyboard and be triggering them through with my bass sound and never have to take a key bass with me. So, or never have to take not a key bass, a MIDI controller. So, it's a lot of little perks to having these types of pedals. And, with something like the Future Impact, I know people was like, it costs a little more than the MXR bass synth. I know it's intimidating because it's a lot of stuff when you go into the software for the Future Impact, but trust and believe it's worth the payoff. With the MXR bass synth, you are going to get everything, like you can control everything on the pedal, but you got to memorize all these different functions. There's like a compressor in there. There's a bunch of secondary functions that you access from holding these buttons up top and turning these 6 knobs, so it gives you essentially 18 different parameters that you can control, or parameters or global settings that you can control and use to, improve the pedal. So I ain't even mad at the Enzo X. It just got some different bass sounds. Just good gracious. There's just so many sounds you can get from these. And all these, again, are available on Patreon. Don't forget to check out the Patreon, the preset packs. Also got preset packs for the Zoom multi-stomp pedals, like the Zoom MS-60B Plus, the Zoom B6. We also got, what else we got on there? Some of the preamp packs we got for the ToneX series stuff is like the Laney Dig Beth is on there, Tisa Electronic BH500, the original joint, the big 30-pound head. You got the Harkey TX600. You got the Jensben Shuttle 9.0, Ampeg SGT, Aguilar AG preamp, Eden WT-DI, the JHS Colorbox V2, the Gensler Magellan preamp is on there. And all this stuff is available for you to just throw on your pedal whenever you're ready. And mind you, you get something like a ToneX one, look how small it is. It doesn't really take up any space, but you'll get a ton of preamp options in there, along with the, when you buy these pedals, they come with a lot of preamps and stuff. So my preamps don't even overlap. So when you actually buy my preamps, you're not buying the same preamps that you just bought when you got the pedal. You're getting additional preamps. So I hope that helps explain that a little bit. And like, don't forget the combination packs, Colorbox Plus SGT, and then the Colorbox Plus Jensben Shuttle 9 and so forth and so on. So check that out on the Patreon. All right, and don't forget about the Mercury X pack either. Let's move on to a little bit of that because, of course, this is Ambient Afternoons. We've been on bass synth for a while. The filters on the Mercury X is crazy for bass too. It's a great pedal just to have at the end of your chain. So, you know, regardless of, even when I'm just playing bass, that's with it on. Without it, right, on. So it has like studio level compression and limiting in there as well. So I use the compressor link, amazing compressor to have at the end of your signal chain, because this is the very last pedal in my signal chain before we go to the looper. So got my compression, high pass on there, and the preamp as well. I'm using some of the tone, saturation from the preamp section on there. But so bam, and then I also have on the hold modifier switch, got the reverb on top. So whatever I'm doing, it just can enhance, And on top of that, it's still a freeze pedal. I can use it like this. Straight up freeze pedal. That's nasty. But even just creating room sounds. I like how the room gets out the way. Sometimes you have reverb effects and it feels like they get in the way, you know what I'm saying? But this one definitely gets out your way. It's more of an aggressive room here. Studio verb. Just sounds like a really massive room, you know what I'm saying? So tape shift. freeze function. The other cool part about it, you know, Mercury X, Enzo X, they are essentially multi-effects units that you can use each of the effects modules that you use for, say, the Mercury X would be, you got a pre-delay section, a delay, reverb section. Pre-delay is pretty much your delay section of the pedal. Then you have your dynamic section, which includes all your compressors, diffusion, freeze, all that stuff, you know, fade in, all that's in there. Then you got preamp section, which is more like a drive section, but it's, you know, you got different types, got modulations in there, and you also have pitch shifting in there. Then you got a bunch of modifiers that you can assign to different parameters. So, you know, and all of these pedals, not all of them, you know, but the majority of these, like ToneX ones, Future Impact, these three up here, are all multi-effects units, essentially. I would even throw the MXR Bass Synth in there. It's hard. The MXR Bass Synth has chorus, has compression. It also has the different synth voices. So you got essentially 3 different synth voices, an upper octave, your unison pitch, and then an octave below. And then you got you can assign that chorus and filter on there, because it has a filter too. You can assign that to different LFO, or to, you know, be a dynamic filter, for instance. So you got a lot of different effects in these, you know, bass synth pedals like this. That's pretty much, as you can see, most of my board is octaver and bass synth pedals. And then the ToneX ones, of course, have chorus and the modulations, delay, reverb, noise gate, compression, and EQ on top of the tone models. Plus, it has IR loader in there as well. So, and it's running 24-bit, 192 kilohertz. It's a sample rate. So, amazing sample rate on the ToneX pedals. By the way, if you want to help out the channel, you can buy one through the description of the video here. Definitely gives the channel, you know, some kickback. So if you want to support the channel and you want to get a ToneX one, grab it through the link in the description. But yeah, so the hard part is you got to get to know these pedals well enough to pull this off. And what I mean by that is you can't just get these pedals playing for a few minutes and think you're gonna have it. It's not that. Because the ToneX ones are relatively simple. These you won't have a problem with, but these synth pedals, even the bass synth, MXR bass synth, take some time. And that essentially, that signal chain there is just Emperor's compressor to the POG 3, ToneX 1s to the MX into the Mercury X. So without the Mercury X, without the ToneX 1s, without the POG 3, without the Empress, which is essentially my dry bass signal. No matter what the size of my pedal board is, it's always people that think I have a lot of pedals. It's like no matter, this is a small version. My pedal board was twice this size, like literally twice the size of this pedal board here. This is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess we'll count this 9, 10 pedals. This is a MIDI controller, screen, and touch screen and stuff, so it's just presets. But you're not really talking about that many pedals. There's really only 9 actual effects pedals. But when you think about what I told you before, how you can use all of these, like this has an octaver. The Future Impact has an octaver and different chorus, delay, distortion, overdrive, all that's in here as well. You know, so you're getting, when you think about these pedals like that, you don't even need to grab a whole bunch of other pedals because they already have great versions of those effects in there. So you start kicking on everything. And you can achieve this octave sound right here with a POG, no, I don't think you can get it with a POG 2 because they don't have freeze on there. Well, you can do it with a POG 3 running into like a Super Ego or a Deep Freeze or something like that. But the Hog 2, Electro Harmonics Hog 2, which you probably could find those for about $300, then you can get that sound with that as well, that freeze glissando mode. And if you set your foot, because I'm using an expression pedal to control the freeze gliss on here, if you don't put it all the way heel down or all the way heel up, you know, you can get some variations of the glissando sound. So see how long it's taking to transform. get some nasty stuff. Really, with just the Pog 3 and the Mercury X. Mind you, the Mercury X has exceptional octave shifting as well. It's just not as quick as the Pog 3, but for the purposes that it's being used for. So let me see some. Well, what you? So perfect pitch shifting. So it didn't miss one note there. Like I can't even think of a chord that would really trip it up. That is perfect pitch shifting. You know how hard it is to get a pitch shifter that can shift like that, but that's why I said the Pog 3 is exceptional as well. Does the same thing, no matter what you throw at it. It tracks perfectly. Even when you slapping. It's like I can't trick this thing. Normally, you'll find a few notes in there, but I can honestly say the Pog 3 definitely is delivering on that in that aspect as well. So let's see with that second octave. Even with the 2 octaves up. that focus button go crazy on you with the single lines. So if I find that with the chordal stuff, I like the focus button off, but for faster lines, so without the focus on, it's a lot more lag there. It just can move like most. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but it is really hard to get an octave to move like that, especially with the double thumb stuff. It can move. And even the upper octaves, like that, and mind you, it can still pitch bend that if you wanted it to. You can have it in sounds like they use more of a buffer. What's going on, folks? Appreciate all y'all chiming in. Appreciate you hanging out with me on a different platform. Make sure you hit the like button while you're here. All the usual suspects starting to show up. Definitely appreciate y'all. Don't forget, we got channel memberships now, because some of this stuff like this, where I'm giving all these details and tips and triggers, only going to be for the members. You know what I'm saying? So if you got a MXR bass synth and you want these presets, and you want me to help you out with your presets, there's going to be members only lives where you guys will be able to ask direct questions about how to get to certain sounds that I do. Now, I'm not going to be copying everybody's sounds. I don't do all that, to be honest with you. I like to kind of create something that is usable for myself as well as a wide variety of people. You know what I'm saying? So, I'll try to definitely answer a lot of the questions about how to get to this or get to that, how to combine things properly, and different even ratios and things like that. So how many of y'all got a POG 3 or thought about getting a POG 3? Is that something that a lot of you guys have even looked into? Or do y'all feel like the POG 3 is like overkill? Because I will say, it definitely is a, it's got a little price on it. What's that thing, about $650, something like that? It sounds amazing. Only thing I don't like that they got going on with this warp function, the octaves do not go in the same direction. So heel down's there, right? You're going to hear the lower octaves drop while the upper octaves go up. And it's like when you add that, I don't like how they making it's a weird thing that it does that you kind of just got to get used to, and kind of it just makes you wrap your mind around it a little bit more. So like right now I got it set to that major chord type sound. It's almost like you don't have to guess, because of course the manual does tell you what the parameters is, that how it's working, but it's like you got to memorize that, because nobody's carrying around the manual, you know what I'm saying? When I'm creating sounds, I'm not trying to have the manual dive. That's why I typically try to learn pedals as soon as I get them. That way I already know what I'm doing when I go to try to create stuff. And you can really hear. So, yeah, you just kind of experiment with it. But you can get some really cool effects with this thing. So, I would recommend maybe using 1 octave at a time for this type of thing. Let's put this back here. So if you just have the octave up, let's take it off it always amazes me how you can. And you can also, another way to do this would be to crossfade between two presets. So, you know, let's see, we go here, down, two presets, let's go. So we want crossfade. Let's just go 1 octave down and 1 octave up. So that's another way to do it. You can crossfade between two different presets, you know, that you already previously created, or you can set them to two custom presets that you created just for that preset itself. So it makes it a very flexible unit, especially for you know, a bassist that like myself that does chordal things, ambient stuff, and pretty much doesn't just play the bass part from the bass. I also play the drum part from the bass. I play the keys part. I play the horn parts. I play any part in that song I play from my bass, you know, in order to create the loop, you know, that I'm creating. So, you know, and even in live stuff, you know, I do solo gigs and I do gigs with a trio, and I do gigs. My trio is me, a trumpet player, and a drummer. And I fill in the rest of that with bass, you know, and all this different type of sounds and, you know, presets and all that good stuff. So definitely comes in handy. Let's put on some nice. I tell you, that Mercury X is insane. Just added the Future Impact into the mix here. So now we got the Empress Compressor, Future Impact V4 VIP, Empress Compressor, Future Impact to the POG 3, coming to the ToneX 1s, to the Mercury X. decide what I want these chord changes to be. As a bass player, you start to realize that the chord changes really just depends on whatever you are playing on the root. Everything else is the type quality, but without you on the bottom, changes everything. That's why I always just save my ideas, just in case. Because as soon as I get off live, watch the whole idea come together. Sometimes all you need is just the beginning of an idea. And a lot of times I come back and revisit ideas a million years later, you know what I'm saying? Years later, you know. But the purpose of a looper, something like this, the reason why I like this particular one, it has plenty of storage, SD card storage, as well as super high quality loops. You know what I'm saying? That loop sounded just the same as when I went to play it. You know what I'm saying? So, that's the goal. Preserve your ideas. Do not just the looper helps you preserve those ideas quickly, without having to go into a computer, get to anything in there, and then waiting for programs to open and routing this, and, it gets you straight to the point. So I always recommend everybody have a looper. Definitely help you out. But, yeah, so that's all I'm going to do for today, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Make sure you hit that like button wherever you are. I'll greatly appreciate you hanging with me as usual. This is another episode of All Bass Creations, Ambient Bass Effects Afternoons. Make sure you hit that like button. If you feel up to it, hit that Cash App, Super Chat, hit them reactions, all that good stuff. It all helps me out, And don't forget to check out the Patreon for all these different pedals and presets for the Future Impact V4, ToneX pedals and software, the Meris Enzo X and Mercury X. You got the C4 Synth pack on there, the Zoom MS-60B, Zoom MS-70 CDR Plus, and the Zoom B6. What did I say? MS-60B Plus? Yes, that's on there as well. And so all that stuff is on the Patreon, as well as if you just want to support the channel every month, you can do that over there for $1 or $5 a month. Helps me continue to, come out with pedal reviews, honest pedal reviews, not just the fluff, the real honest reviews and things like that. So we got a lot of new stuff coming to the channel. We're going to be doing some collaborations with some different artists, some different YouTubers and influencers. So, make sure you like and subscribe and all that good stuff for me. Find me on all social media at the Bass Negus. You know what I'm saying? Wherever you are, at the Bass Negus, and I would greatly appreciate it. All right, you guys have a wonderful day. This has been another episode of All Bass Creations, Effects, Tutorials, Demos, and Review.